Welcome, everybody. I got Andrew, Greg, Uri, Pal, and Story, of course, here with me today. We're going to be talking about a couple of different code-related things, something cool that Andrew's got. I've got a story or a question for Story, not a story for question. And we'll just get right into it. So welcome. Hello. How's everybody doing today?
Doing good.
Could be better. If you'd ask me, there's no Unity here. Things feel unreal. If you ask me how I'm doing, I go ... and I answer you in stride saying it's a mess. But could be better. A lot of cringe too, apparently. Yeah. But hey, I'm here and Dev Talk. Let's go.
All right, so yeah, let's start with Andrew's thing real quick because I've got it right up here. I want to pop it up and show everybody. You released a bunch of new monsters this week, and I happened to see when you did the video of the little hoppy jumpy dude, and I thought that guy was freaking awesome. So it looks like you've got them all in a monster collection now.
Yeah, so they're all on the new release discount, but Monster Collection 2 it's got 20 characters in it. It's also new release discount, so it's half off. So if you don't have the monsters yet, now they're $12.50 each. They're a very good deal, in my very humble opinion. But it's the 3 new characters. When it rains, it pours. They just all got ready to go all at the same time, and so that's what happened. 3 came out. We got Banshee, Forest Warrior, and the Jumper character, which is the one you saw. That is the second of the cute ones, quote unquote cute, based off of AI generated art that I then sent over to the modeling folks, and they did a great job. And the animators did a wonderful job, especially like they're all great. Like the animations are great. On Banshee is huge. There's dozens of animations. It's actually quite large. But Jumper, the facial animations, the mouth, the tongue, everything is just really on point. So, and the customization options are awesome. 10 body textures for both the Banshee and the Jumper, and all the painter files, so you can make your own. It's very exciting. So
yeah, it's kind of funny how you have both the Disney animation Jumper and then the actual opposite. I can't think of anything farther in the Banshee. And I also wanted to say that the Banshee looks like really good. It reminded me of one of the secret bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1, which is like the Phantom on the clock tower. It's a really nice boss fight. We can talk about that later.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you like that. The Banshees specifically, that one took a little extra long. I actually hired some extra help from one of the viewers here, Shadowed Soul Studios, helped me out with the animation because I got the day job. I was busy. I was like, I don't have time to build this animator controller for this character. It's got 3 different states. It's got a crawling state, a standing state, and a floating state. Transitions between them all, attacks in them all, locomotions in them all. It's a very, very, very big character. It's really a hero character, I would say, in all of the things. So the Banshee is definitely one to check out.
Yeah. There are... Go ahead. I just wanted to say that when you have a lot of animation sets for a specific character, it's also something that's very tempting to try and like implement and use every single one of them in an actual game.
We didn't put all of the animations in the demo because there were too many, and there's variations. There's different variations of it. So, and then the Jumper there, like I love the opening shots where you just see all the different variations of the Jumper you can make. And even though it is a cute character, I imagine it would work very well in projects that are not focused on Disney-esque aesthetics.
In regards to the Jumper and this trailer, did you actually make it with Cinemachine?
No, actually, I should be making it with Cinemachine. I do have a couple of tricks. I use the recorder first so that there's no frame drops. Even with a fast computer, you're going to get some frame drops. So I use the recorder, which is a Unity package. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I've got a camera script, so I control it with my keyboard. But also, I will do combinations of attaching the camera to the character. So that like when these moving ones, it's attached to the character, so it just moves with the character, and then I can pan around that view. But I also have some scripts that will focus on a specific bone. So a lot of the times, especially when you see if the camera's just like slowly moving, or in some of them, like especially the Banshee has a lot of these shots where it's just the head's not moving, but the whole body is a very creepy shot. It's because the camera is locked to the head. And so you get the head not moving, but everything else is moving. It's very fun.
Yeah, so first off, great use of the recorder package. I actually forgot it exists for a brief moment. I wrote it off because I tried to use an extension to that package in the past, which is the FBX exporter, which works with the recorder package to try and have a recording of a set of, say, animations that happen in the scene, and then export them into an animation file so that you can import them as a baked asset and save yourself processing cycles and know that it's the same one every time. For example, if a pile of bricks falls in the game scene, you may want to record that and take it out and then use it whenever you want. That would have been great, but the FBX exporter package is it's not in a good state. It's barely getting updated. It's in a bad state for years. That said, the base code is actually fantastic. So there are two things worth talking about here. One is that if you are willing to locally import it, change some internals into publics, and then use it, perfectly usable for literally anything you want, including humanoid animations, which for some reason it doesn't support, even though it should entirely support it. I don't get that. And then, separately, there is an actual class that's not part of the recorder package nor the Unity FBX exporter package, which is the Game Object Recorder class. This is an actual god tier class in Unity that I didn't know existed until I tried to mess with the FBX exporter, which is the underlying technology that the recorder package actually uses. It lets you track certain property paths of literally any game object in the scene and record them over time. And you can manually control when you want to record. So you can say like record once per second or record once per frame. And then you can replay that animation anytime you want. It's perfect. Genius.
How do you use that one?
The Game Object Recorder class. It's part of the Unity engine, if I recall.
Oh, and just built in, you don't have to add the other package?
Yeah, you literally just start using it, like make an instance, bind whatever paths you want, like properties, and straight up, yeah, just use it however you wish. You tell it when to start recording, when to stop recording, when to record it all. Great tool. There are some gems in the Unity engine when you're willing to look.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I feel like I constantly find new things. Most of the time it's after talking to Uri, but
and that's the thing with software, right? It gets more complex as time goes on, and as long as things don't get taken away, it's just going to get more feature filled. Some of them will not be, like if the FBX Explorer seems like it needs to be managed a little bit, but you just get more and more. And how many buttons in Unity have you actually clicked? You know, we've talked about that before. There's a lot of buttons that I've never clicked that button. I don't know what it does.
That's literally the point of my entire GameDev Guild talk. Like, did you actually see this button existed? How about that one? Maybe this menu.
There's a lot. What's going on with you, Story? Sorry, you've been silent for a while, so.
Oh, don't tell me. Sorry, I'm writing some notes as we go. I've got some side projects on the go. But yeah, pretty good. I've been working on some Specter, as I've mentioned already to a few people. So I've been noodling with some level design stuff lately.
You want to tell everybody what that is?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Yeah. So in October, level designers, there's not really much resources for level design as a profession. And so there's the hashtag for Blocktober, which is basically if you've worked on a game, and this is for AAA studios as well as indies, if you worked on a game as a level designer, post your in-progress work. And oftentimes you'll find studios, like professional studios, who will post in-progress stuff where you'll see a bunch of colorless boxes slowly getting colors, adding some props, and then the end result levels in games. And so it's a really good excuse to sort of get a grip at how that stuff works and how to design interesting spaces and how people approach level design. And yeah, I always find it particularly interesting. I find that you'd be amazed how little details you need to get a really to get a sense of the space. With like literally just boxes, you can tell whether a place is supposed to be a prison or a castle, or whether it's meant to be dark or light, or whether even how you play the game. You can tell a game's a stealth game based on the kinds of high ground the game provides and stuff. It's actually really fascinating when you start to study level design.
I just wanted to say that you keep using the term box, even though it's Blocktober, but yeah.
There is a big discussion around, is it white boxing, gray boxing, blockouts, block mesh? There's a whole lot of discussion over the terminology, so yeah.
Just call it white boxtober. Gray
Pink
boxtober.
material tober.
Let's call it GBO from now on. Nobody on. Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the things that I know before I got into the game industry at all, I never would have. I didn't realize that like being a level designer was such a like specific and skilled job, and the quality difference. Like, because I mean, when I started off in games when I was young and thought I could do everything, I was like, I can make levels all day long. This is fucking easy. Like I could easily make levels. But at the time, I didn't really recognize what made the good levels good, the things that I actually enjoyed good. I just knew that they were good, and I would just copy those, right? that was my thought. But when I got in and actually started working, especially at Sony, there were so many designers that were so segmented out. You saw that like there are people that were just amazing at designing levels, not just for aesthetics, but for gameplay. Essentially kind of what you're talking about, and putting together these ideas of like, this is where this is going to be, and it's going to make sense and actually be fun. Sometimes it's story based, but a lot of the time it was more around the, at least the stuff that I found interesting was around like the challenging, like raid level and difficult content stuff, where they're putting these dungeons together with a plan in mind of what the content's going to look like inside it and how it's all going to kind of lay out. And I feel like that is a big skill that I used to completely overlook. And I think a lot of people still do. I probably told the story of my wife and Salim multiple times when she'd ask me what he does, and until he's a game designer, she's like, so he makes art? I'm like, nope. Like, oh, so he writes code? Like, no. I'm like, so what does he do? Just play games all day? I'm like, yeah. And eventually she still doesn't understand what he does. I've explained it a couple times.
It's actually to that point that, like, for me, I found it really fascinating when people would break down the most innocuous stuff. Like, you'd see pages and pages of discussions on like how tall a block should be, or staircases and stuff. And so to that point, two questions I've got a lot is, how do you make your demo scenes look nice? And to that, I said, well, why don't I just make a sample project? So I made a sample project. It's on my GitHub. That's literally just replacing all of the boring stuff. Replaces the horrible default text for TextMouse Pro with like a good font, like we discussed the last day. It uses Lato as the base font. So if you make a new TextMouse Pro text, you get a nice Lato font by default. And it also does stuff like it replaces the Pro Builder textures with a better grid box, sort of cleaner aesthetic style. And I've also threw in a few different things for fog and for lighting and post-processing and whatever. And there's a character controller in there as well. But the main thing, to your point, is I wanted to highlight exactly what you said, which was like the details of a small thing. So in the video there, I demonstrate I've basically built just a test scene, which is about 40 different things to think about when making stairs. And I thought it would be fun to just do that for each kind of specific detailed thing in a game, of going, this is what a level designer does. They're thinking about size and location and spacing and affordance and design and layout, and really just go through what does the architecture scream about how the design works and looks and what it does. And so that's available to try out. And there's, again, a whole bunch of different kinds of staircases that telegraph certain kinds of things. And when I have time, I'll do the same thing for doorways and for sight lines, and there's various other high ground is a big one. There's a lot of this stuff which has the same level of complexity to think about.
And do you want to tell people where they can get this package? Well, on the list.
I guess Jason can post a link. It's on my GitHub. It's there somewhere.
There you go. Just dropping it in chat. I just wanted your okay before I posted it in there.
Go for it.
And everybody could also hop into your Discord too if they want to find out about this stuff earlier, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's on the Ko-fi page, which I'll drop up there in a second once I scroll through and find it. I've got way too
And
many
then
layers.
as well as like the level stuff too, or the that kind of design, I was debating how much mechanics to add. I didn't really want to like get too deep in the weeds of making it too complicated, but I pasted another GIF to show you there, which was I put some very basic mechanics in as well, things like doorways and trigger boxes that can trigger cameras changing position, or things like that I often see people not do in Unity, like bi-directional trigger boxes. The amount of people who put a trigger box in front of a door and then have to either hook up two separate door open and closes, or the door will always open incorrectly in one direction or something, or they struggle with how to get a doorway to work. I've got a type of trigger box which literally has a entered from left, exited from left, entered from right, exited from right, and a percentage for the distribution across it. So if you wanted to have a trigger box that transitions and fades and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of those like little examples. I think they're on a different branch though, because I was sort of playing with those separately. So that was this one, I think.
Let's pop that up.
But yeah, there you go. Just something to play with. It was, to be brutally honest, it was more for me than anybody else, but I was just sort of having fun with it and thought that the main benefit was that I realized ever since the kinematic character controller went public, basically you can do all of this for free, right? So all of these assets are either packages by Unity or they are free assets on the asset store. So you can get a lot of mileage out of entirely free stuff.
And also to add to this, a lot of the free stuff actually have a lot of features that you used in this, right? The whole sim machine zoom out, go back in smoothly, etc.
Mm-hmm. Even the door is using a Tween library. It's using Prime Tween, so that kind of stuff.
Prime Tween is great.
Definitely my new favorite.
Yeah. For those not in the know, you'll see a lot of videos across most of YouTube recommending an asset called DoTween. DoTween is an asset that basically moves things over time when you call through it in code. There is also a pro version that has like fancy inspectors to try and call certain movements to certain destinations over time in certain ways to save you time, like making it easy if you're not a programmer. But it does allocate some memory every time you start a new animation, and a lot of people will use it for things that happen really frequently throughout the game. For example, every time a character wants to jump, you want to jump in a certain way, so you might program it just as an animation using DoTween. And while you can cut down the memory usage, there are very small things that like will catch you off guard, and they don't exactly explain it too well. Prime Tween's whole main point is that it completely eliminates a lot of the unnecessary things and keeps it like as simple as possible and not allocating memory as you do it for most cases. And it explains to you exactly how to achieve zero memory allocations as you use it. And there's also like frequent key usage. So if you have an animation that's already started in DoTween and you want to cancel it and start a different animation, but from where you were, there's not exactly a very clean process on how to do that. They don't exactly offer it to you a clean path to that. You have to like figure out the methods on your own. Prime Tween straight up just lets you call a new tween on the same exact property, and it will move the property as if that's the only tween on it.
Nice. I have not tried this before. This looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I've always used DoTween, so this is my first time hearing about this.
Well, the creator of Prime Tween was very smart in that they matched the APIs. So a lot of the similar lines of code will work identically between the two.
Do move and do rotate and all that. Do fade.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That is definitely cool. I'm gonna have to add this to my list of things to play with and start using.
One other thing too, just as a side note, since we're talking about some of those best practices stuff, another benefit of the little demo project I set up is there's a couple of things people never think to do that I wanted to demonstrate in that project. They're not world-ending things, but they're just nice to haves. For example, I've set up a prefab scene for both UI and for normal prefabs. So I have a 4K canvas for UI, so it looks high resolution. And if you were to open any button prefab element, it will open up in an appropriate sized correct canvas for editing and that kind of stuff. I've done the same with like a lot of other like little tweaks and settings I've changed, that, like having a game manager. So the game, even if you open a brand new empty scene and press play, it will load a game manager and fade in from black at the start. Like just little nice touches that I use in all of my setups and projects that I thought would be a good demonstration. So
batteries included. There is also something that we should probably bring up with Blocktober, is that the power of actually having something that works out of the box so you can iterate quickly. Like when you open a new scene, you want to have a nice feeling, maybe a character that can just drop in and start playing without having to set up a bazillion components in weird archetypes and putting components on your camera so you can display post-processing or flow health, etc., etc. So having something that just drops that all in, very useful. There's also the whole additive scene approach you can take instead of that, like a test scene that just loads itself and contains all of this, and then you don't actually have to deal with the main scene being fed all that.
Well, as I said, I made it like for myself for those kinds of tests. Like something that I wanted, which I just put in yesterday, again for myself, is I made a trigger box, which when you stand in it, changes the input system's mapping. So you can have a box that you stand in and then activates a different mode, so you could have controls in the environment. I wanted that for like a demo scene where you could walk up and toggle between color palettes or toggle between different layouts for stair heights and stuff and see the outcomes. And I didn't want to have to do a big complex thing, so I simply made player map, and I made like in-world map with left, right, forward, back, except all the basics. And then I can literally have a box you walk into, I steal controls, and then you can sort of have them back afterwards. So all of those like little out-of-the-box solutions, I think are again, I made them for me to quickly prototype ideas, and I found that they're definitely a good benefit.
Yeah, the new input system's way to switch between control types is actually one of the nicest features about it, because they specifically designed it for the most common use cases in big games. Like in GTA, if you just run around, you have different controls than whether you're in a car or if you're in a plane. And just saying, hey, disable player controls, enable car controls, very nice and very easy, and lets the player customize it separately as well, which is a big thing. Especially if you have special accessories like those wheels and the joysticks for flying vehicles. Yeah. Though, to the point of earlier, the thing that I wanted to bring up is that in Blocktober, one of the things that I keep like mentioning to myself is the entire purpose of blocking things out early is to save yourself from making expensive, slow to create assets by just checking what you need first, because you can make a proof of concept of what you will be playing in entirely functional, even without its visuals at all, just using blocks.
Instead of making all the pretty stuff and then deleting it and then making it again and deleting it.
You don't want to make 600 polygon plants and put them in your scene only to find out that you don't need the plant there.
Yeah, so actually, exactly, again, to that point, right? Now, I didn't post it in that demo because it's part of a different project, but here's another link to kind of really highlight that point. Like, I truly believe you can get 99% of your demonstration of your environment and space with just boxes, some ambient occlusion, and a little bit of post-processing. And so what I'll often do is I'll block out a space like this, where it's literally just me demonstrating how does this feel? Does it feel like a space I would want to traverse? Does it? And you can, again, you get a sense of heights and distances and whatever. And yeah, like you get, this is literally just a character controller plus Pro Builder. There is nothing in the scene. In fact, that is the default light in the default setup with only a skybox change. I didn't even switch from linear to from gamma to linear. Like, it's just the default setup with the post-processing slapped on top of it, and you can get a lot of mileage out of it. And it's just enough kind of visual effects for it to not feel horrible to stare at an empty scene, but it's not so much that you'll get distracted and start min-maxing placement of plants and whatever else, right? The one addition I did add for my own projects, which I didn't want to include because it would add complexity to this one, is decals. I will add decals to early prototype stuff because sometimes you want to telegraph like a location or mark out a spawn point or something, and you want it to be in world. And so, yeah, the one additional layer I might add to something like that would be a decal system.
I just use the barbaric differently colored box to signal all of these. Yeah. That said, decals have like a huge advantage over a lot of other ways to implement a certain feature, which is if the geometry needs to change, the decal does not. So it can be consistent regardless of however many unique assets you have. If you have Uncharted is a really good example of that, where they would mark certain areas. I think it was in yellow, or am I getting confused?
No,
they would,
interactive with yellow, yeah.
yeah. They would mark a lot of different areas with like scraps, etc. That here is the path that you should go, but they didn't actually need to like create unique assets for all of this. Sometimes it's nice if you can do that. For example, if you have pipes in Mirror's Edge, you might color them in red so that the player knows I should be looking towards those. But if you don't, you can just use decals instead, and then you can dynamically move them or flash them or change their color, and it can be of great usage for gameplay purposes.
And that's what I did in the original demo, which you'll notice is I've set up Pro Builder automatically with a custom material swapper, because again, people don't realize you can set up a material palette in Pro Builder. So if you do download that project and open it, you can just select any surface or face or object and press Alt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and switch between painting it red, painting it green, blue, whatever. I've got all of those set up. And so that's what I'll do for a lot of that. Is it walkable? Is it high ground? Is it, to differentiate surfaces? But for me, I'll use a decal specifically for, like, sometimes you want to do it to mark, like, this is belonging to region 1 or belonging to a particular faction or something. Or as to your point, I don't want to go and build the mechanics for the like wall climbing yet, but I do want to slap 4 scrapes on the wall so that I know later that that's the wall climbing portion of the map.
Yeah, and because you can move it like any other game object, you can even like animate it or whatever. Also, something that a lot of people don't understand: decals aren't magic. That's something that I heard before. I just want to clarify it here. Decals are just boxes with shaders for the most part, and all the shader does is say, I draw at the front, I don't write to depth, and then if there is something in my box and its depth is proper, which means it's within the box boundaries, draw something instead of that. And then we have the mask that says, okay, so depending on how I'm angled, if the texture says I don't have opacity here, just don't change what is drawn. And if I do have opacity here and the depth is inside my box, draw something here. But it's literally just a box that draws on top of everything, which means you can do 3D decals and not just 2D decals. So you can literally put like I mentioned pipes earlier, you can literally color an entire pipe by just saying everything that is in this box is now painted red, not just one side of the surface. Yeah. I just think it's important to mention.
Oh, it definitely is. You had another topic too that you wanted to talk about today, right? I think we should make sure to dive into that before we run out of time. I want to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. So where do I start? I've recently been working on an editor tool that goes across multiple game engines to bring one asset back and forth multiple times. So there is a bit of a backstory to this. I hope you bear with me. Every engine has its own set of best practices. I deal with animations a lot, and when you create animations, you usually do them bone-based, which means there is a rig, a structure. It's a skeleton of a character, for example, and that skeleton has bones like shoulder, upper arm, lower arm, hand, each finger. And when you create those bones, they have names. And how animation works is every named bone gets values that it needs to animate through. So for example, when I do this kind of animation, the bone says there is a curve that says this bone's rotation on this axis goes like this. Those values need to be named very specifically, or else it doesn't know what to animate. There is no magic that says just know how to animate that human, man.
It's all convention based, right? Based on what those names are.
Yeah, it's not even convention based. It's literally string matching. So if there is a single difference, it's not found, it's not going to get used. That's where a lot of simplifications come in. For example, Unity's humanoid system lets you declare for the editor what kind of bones are each part of the human. And then behind the scenes, what it does is it actually renames those bones for you. If you take a humanoid animation in Unity and you press Ctrl-D to duplicate the asset, and then you check the curves are now named after human bones, not your character's model's bones. This is very important because it means you can't map them back necessarily if you don't know the humanoid structure of the specific avatar, because humanoid animations can be shared. So you can have a situation where two different rigs with two entirely separate bones have the same human bone path name. So the animation would work on both of them, but not be translatable back to the original character because it's using the humanoid bone name. Going back to the original topic, though, each tool also has best practices on how to name things. And this is where things get a bit dicey. Unreal Engine does not like dots in the name. And Blender loves dots in the name. In fact, if you duplicate an object, it will name it object name .001. Now, a lot of people work through duplicating bones to create things fast, or extrusion of bones, which, if you don't rename them, use .001. For example, if I start making a spine chain, I would have hips, spine, upper spine, neck, etc. But when I don't name anything, it would be armature 001, armature 002, armature 003. Now, all of this is to say, because Unreal does not like dots, what does Unreal do? Unreal silently renames the bones when you import the asset into Unreal Engine. It will replace all the dots with underscores. Is this a problem? No. Because you're using Unreal Engine. You don't intend to ever take the asset out of Unreal Engine. In fact, it doesn't even retain its original format. It's now a U asset. It's an Unreal Engine asset. This is all premonition, by the way. There's a very annoying thing that's about to come up. So Unreal does recognize that asset creators would want to export an asset out, change it, and then bring it back in. Maybe you didn't keep the original file, maybe you made some changes, and then you want to extract it to process it for some other tool and then bring it back in. And I tried to do just that. I tried to retarget an animation in Unreal Engine and then bring it out to Blender so I can do some more processing on it. And then I found the names are different. But I didn't find that out until I tried to use the animation in Unity. So I have a character in Unity that I created with Blender, which has 0.001 in the names. And then I used the same asset in Unreal Engine. I retargeted, I brought it out, I moved the exported animation into Unity, and suddenly it doesn't even work anymore because it renamed the animation. So now I'm making a tool that on Unreal Engine does the export and then calls a Python script to load Blender, load the asset, load a script that says, here are all the original bone names, find the mutated bone names, rename them, also rescale it to fit Unity better, also change the root motion, because Unreal Engine also removes an armature object at the root of your object if you exported something with Blender, and then bring it all to Unity and also check that it works. Because, if I had to do it manually, I would lose my sanity so quickly if I didn't already. Did I? Yeah, so this is all to say, I actually applaud all three of these tools because they can all actually let me run the processes I need to make sure this works, even though they don't support the same things. In Unreal Engine, specifically, there is a set of editor utilities tab when you try to create an asset. And this is blueprinting for editor utility widgets and editor utility actions. And this is literally anything anywhere in the menu in Unreal Engine. I literally can create a dev asset action that will work on any type of asset I want. It even has a blueprint method to say, can I actually process this asset? And I can tell it, only let me process this asset if it's an animation asset, and then contextually, the button will only show up if I am clicking an animation asset. It's freaking fantastic. And I can even like use a widget to give myself options on how I want to use it. And there are people who made fantastic expansions to it because Unreal Blueprints, even though they let you access the grand majority of the engine, there is not a single node to open a file dialog or a folder dialog. But there is a free expansion that calls these methods on the Unreal Marketplace. So you can literally import new nodes to create developer tools with, and you don't have to write a single line of code in the entire process. Freaking amazing.
Yeah, it does sound nice. So you built this tooling all up. Is it all working now?
No, it's not working. No, I'm kidding. I actually got really, really far in. So I used the editor utility developer action asset to create something that when I click an animation, it says, do your eyes export. That export basically lets me pick an output folder, and all my selected assets get exported with Unreal's animation exporter, and then immediately passed into Blender with multiple Python scripts in the order that I specify that say rename all the bones, rescale the object, recreate an armature node, extract root motion for X and Z values, which I'm still working on. And then once the entire FBX is done, export it with specific settings for Unity and put it in Unity's folder for my current project. Python is the glue that makes everything stick so very nicely.
Oh, I know. I've been using it forever for that kind of stuff. It's like one of the key tools of a. Go ahead.
Martin and I, we live in a ChatGPT world too, right? Like for those of us who are not super familiar with all the micro libraries of all these different tools, I admit, even though my go-to is C# or PowerShell or maybe batch scripting, sometimes, each of these tools, it doesn't matter which one you want to go with, you can usually type it into ChatGPT and get sort of some help. Honestly, I don't use it for much else these days, but when I need a snippet, some kind of script to like solve oftentimes get command line here, feed information in, pipe information out, feed it to here, there's nothing better.
Yeah, it's actually really fantastic in developer-specific actions as well, because it actually knows the entire API better than you do, usually. It can literally come up with things that I've never heard of that actually do exist and would save me a lot of time, or write code that's actually proper for something that I don't even know how to access. So that's really useful to have. Thank you for bringing it up. I actually did use ChatGPT for one very specific thing there. I kind of didn't understand why bone renaming didn't work properly. Apparently, Blender also has named action tracks for bones. So if you just rename the bone, it doesn't rename the action track. The editor does it. The actual script does not. So ChatGPT was like, hey, did you actually forget that? Yeah. There was somebody that mentioned being animator new to GameDev. I just wanted to say it's a lot less scary than I made it seem. If you only stick with one game engine and you're not doing deranged asset importing and exporting like I do, it's really fine. Both Unreal and Unity have a lot of tooling in place to make sure that you don't actually ever need to leave the engine. For example, Unity recently added an animation rigging package that lets you use AK rigs to control your animation, then bake it out and use that as an animation asset. Sadly, once you do that, you're stuck in Unity for reasons I'm not going to get into today, but you can do all your animations in Unity. I've seen multiple developers who do that. Some of them are on X or Twitter or whatever you name it today. They're perfectly fine. Unreal Engine has amazing retargeting tools that you can use editor only. You don't need to script anything, and there is visual scripting for anything. If you do care about scripting anything, you don't need to know a single line of code, C++, whatever. They're really good at what they're doing. I previously talked about Houdini and how it's a cheat to life because you can do so many data transformations and animation retargeting in it. Unreal's is better. Unreal's is straight up better. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I've had a way better result with it for far less time. It's really good now. Oh, and on that note, Unreal Fest happened not long ago, and they've shown a lot of really nice things there. And some of those were about animation. They specifically showed a dragon that's moving with an IK rig that makes the body, like it was a long snake dragon, and the entire body wiggled in the air as he moved dynamically as if it's flowing. Was really nice.
I've got to go in just a few minutes, but I wanted to quickly share something. It's you just reminded me of JetBrains also has their AI day or their game dev day going on right now. It's not share my tab, share this tab instead, which is like all day long. They've got a bunch of talks on JetBrains tools and game dev stuff. What happened to all the people? Everybody just disappeared. There we go. Your eye is super wide. That is the weirdest view I've seen. So yeah, if you haven't checked that out, yeah. check out the JetBrains Game Dev Day thing too. It's still going on for a little while longer. I think they're still live and they've got the recordings. And then I know Story's got to go. I've got to go because I got an electrician pulling up right now. I guess thanks everybody for coming out. I put the link to Story's Discord right there. I'm gonna pop up the link to that character bundle as soon as I get a second. And where's that at? Oh man, I've got too many things in here. I keep too much stuff. Oh, Monster Collection right there. Bam, go check that out. It's half off. Oh, and of course, there's a link for Highland Panic down in the description. It's actually like the second link in my description now of all the game dev shows. If you haven't grabbed it yet, go grab it. Try it out. If you love it, leave a positive review on Steam. And we should talk some more about your game sometime, Greg. Maybe next week have a discussion about how it's going and what that process has been like now that you've been out for. It's been like 2-3 months now.
Well, it just released this week or last week.
Okay, so I've just had early access to it for way too long.
Yeah, I had an open demo out there for quite a while, but yeah, it released October 2nd. I'm actually doing a Google Ads campaign. I had a support call today with them to see if I can't get some traction on it.
Oh, sweet. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, we'll have to do a whole session just talk about it. I love to just dive a little bit more into it. I think people would find it super interesting. All right, I've got to go. It looks like the electrician is walking up to the door right now. Anybody got any final words before we head out?
Bye.
Bye. Be safe, all.
You too, Uri.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you all later. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. Those are my final words.